Hi, I'm Dr. Phil Hoffman. Welcome to this episode of In Reach as we talk about what the Central Florida arts communities are doing in response to and after the end of the COVID outbreak. And with us this morning is Joshua Vickery, who is the founder and the executive director of Central Florida Community Arts. Good morning.
Good morning, Phil. Thank you so much for having me.
Nice to see you, Josh. And of course, Joshua and I have worked together on several projects. CFC Arts, for the folks that are not familiar with the institution, been around here in town for about a decade now. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the development of CFC Arts, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for being such a wonderful advocate for the arts, Phil. We appreciate you very much. We started this journey, like you said, almost 10 years ago. I was in church music, and then I was a casting director for Disney Entertainment. And this is a mecca here in Central Florida for talented people, similar to Broadway in New York City or film in LA. Because of our theme parks and convention industry, people flock here hoping for that next opportunity. And so as I was hosting auditions from people really all over the world, I would ask them, while you're here in Central Florida, where do you perform and how do you belong to our community? And most people said they did not have that space or that place. And so that really birthed in me this idea and vision to create a safe and encouraging and welcoming space for, at the time, just singers to be able to perform. So in September of 2010, I gathered about 35 people in my garage with a really horrible PowerPoint presentation. I cast a vision of how this little choir was going to change our community, and that really began our journey.
So one of the interesting things when you talk about changing the community, Joshua, is it really has. I mean, when you think about the growth of the organization in the span of a decade, you are maybe one of the biggest overnight successes, right, in Central Florida. But it grew well beyond the idea of just the choir, didn't it?
Yeah, it really did. And I wish that we could say that we had this master plan when we started the organization in 2010, but we really didn't. And we continued to create opportunity as we saw the need. And so we created the orchestra in 2012, then we created our youth programs and academy. And then we really, in 2013, as we became a nonprofit, Central Florida Community Arts, we really realized that our mission was about service and about accessibility, making sure that everyone in Central Florida could experience the arts, no matter what barriers might be in their way.
And that's an interesting part of when you talk about the mission of CFC Arts. I think one of the things that folks maybe don't always get the picture about is, you're a performing arts organization, absolutely. But there's a lot more behind that. Can you talk a little bit about the broader aspects of the mission of Central Florida Community Arts?
Yeah, so we are a performing arts organization and very unique. We're a multidisciplinary, multi-generational organization. So we actually have all of the performing arts under one umbrella. So dance and theater and orchestra and singing. And it's for all ages, from preschoolers all the way up to programs that we have in hospice. So we love to perform. We put on some pretty awesome shows. We'll have 6,000 people come to one of our holiday shows. But it really isn't what drives us. The product that we put on stage is not the most important thing. It's what happens off the stage in building community. We believe the arts have so many things that make our community a better place, like social connection and expression and empathy and all of those things. And so we really strive to use the arts to really make our community a better place. And that is by creating opportunity.
And, even when you talk about using the arts as sort of this vehicle, I mean, you all do a lot of really interesting kind of programs where you are working with people in situations, maybe art as therapy, or for people who ordinarily don't have an opportunity to engage in artistic kind of productions, they can with Central Florida Community Arts.
Absolutely. And we have over 100 programs in 5 counties, Phil. And we really look at 3 different areas. We look at arts for well-being. And so arts for well-being is just everyday people, you and me, who love to sing in a choir or dance or perform in a show or play our instrument like we did in college. It just brings joy to our life. And then we use arts for arts and wellness. And that's marrying some type of physical or cognitive disability with an arts experience. So whether it's dementia or Parkinson's, cancer support or motor disabilities, we create arts experiences for each one of those populations. And then there's arts for vulnerable communities. And that is some kind of at-risk or under-supported community that does not have access to the arts, and we create those opportunities. So when you talk about arts accessibility, when you look at those three different areas, it really does create a path to make sure everyone can experience the arts.
Now, one of the things that probably has to be frustrating about the current situation with the coronavirus outbreak, of course, is not only is it difficult to have performances where you have audiences and those sorts of things, but as you mentioned, even just the joy of getting together and singing together or playing together now is much more difficult. How has CFC Arts tried to adapt and pivot during this time?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It has been difficult, and our people are missing each other. That is something that's so beautiful about CFC Arts. We call ourselves a big artistic family, and relationships are key. The city of Orlando this year named us the Community Builder of the Year. And so an organization that thrives off of coming together in community has definitely been missing it. But we physically shut down our programs in our buildings on March 13th. We took that weekend to brainstorm and think, and that Monday, March 16th, we hit the ground running, and we pivoted so many of our programs to be able to mobilize virtually. And so whether it's workshops or classes, lessons, music therapy, virtual rehearsals and hangouts, all sorts of things like playwriting challenges and songwriting challenges, we have done as much as we can to continue to bring the arts into people's homes.
And certainly that's true. I know in the online space, I'm not sure if it's every night, but I feel like it's every night that there's some sort of virtual performance from somebody that's involved in your organization. How did that come to pass, and what has been the result of that kind of performance virtually?
Yeah, you're right. It's every night. We've done about 65 so far. And so what we did was we wanted to really, every time something happens in our community, we want to be able to use our voice in a way that is relevant. And so in this space, we wanted to be able to really lift up our healthcare personnel and our first responders. And so we reached out to Advent Health and Orlando Health, who are our partners, and we created a concert series to honor our healthcare personnel. And so every night, an artist or a group of artists go live from their home and do a concert, and we ask for donations for those hospitals or letters of encouragement. And it's been really beautiful because not only have we raised a lot of money for those causes, but we've also been able to give a lot of artists something to look forward to, something to be expectant of. And so they've been able to create those opportunities in their own homes.
So I'm glad. I thought it was every night. I'm glad I'm not wrong about that. So let's talk a little bit about the future. Someday, Josh, we'll all be able to get together again and enjoy performances and as an audience, and performances as a group, playing together, singing together, all those sorts of things. Tell us a little bit about what you see once we're beyond the current crisis and folks feel like they can go out and enjoy the arts again.
Yeah, we're an organization that creates programs in neighborhoods and in community centers and after-school programs. So we're used to being flexible, we're used to being nimble, and I think we were built for this moment. And so we are trying to be innovative in the way that we bring things virtually, and then eventually a hybrid of the two. And then when we're able to come back together, how can we keep our people safe? And we're looking at every opportunity. So we actually have the ability to have access to a drive-in technology where we think maybe our first choir rehearsals will be where a few hundred cars with our choir members pull up, and they're able to turn into a radio station and listen to us plunk out parts and teach music. We believe that with our orchestra in a very large gym, we can spread them out, and those that aren't comfortable coming, we can have their friend FaceTime them from their chair so they can hear and see where they would normally be sitting in orchestra rehearsal. So we're trying to think of all the ways that we can bring our artists back safely soon.
And of course, the big challenge with any kind of musical performance, well, really any performance, Josh, is that, technology is great, but even if there's like a 2-second delay by the time that you get that creates a problem for somebody that's trying to play music, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely challenges to perform. analogy. But what's interesting, Phil, is that there are challenges, but what we've seen, and especially with our mission of accessibility, is that we've been able to engage people in their homes that we would never be able to engage if they had to come out of their homes into us. So we hope that we will never go backwards, that even when we are able to get back to what we thought was normal, that technology in this virtual world will be a part of our outreach and a part of our mission. So whether it's seniors or it's at-risk populations or people who just live too far away to get to us, we can still reach them.
So you're sort of envisioning the future is not going back maybe necessarily to the way we're doing things, but what we're adding now in this crisis moment will become part of the mix going on, right?
Absolutely. And, we're a pretty optimistic and positive organization, so we don't want to get, too far ahead of ourselves, but we really do believe our best days are ahead because we believe that we're able to reach people not just in Central Florida, but even outside of Central Florida because of the things that we learned. We have people right now tuning into our classes and workshops in other states and other countries. So we do believe that maybe our impact will be even greater on the other side of this.
Very interesting. Well, one of the things I know that we had been talking about that you were really looking forward to this year was it's the 10th anniversary of Central Florida Community Arts. And that was going to be a celebration, a big party. And now our friend coronavirus has kind of thrown some cold water on that. Talk a little bit about what you're hoping to be able to do in the future as relates to the 10th anniversary.
Yeah, and thank you for being aware of that, Phil. We're really proud that we're coming up on that 10th anniversary, September 27th, 2020. And we had a full year of celebrations in a variety of ways. Some of our most aggressive artistic offerings that we were trying, lots of fundraising opportunities and celebrations for our members. But we just felt like it was not the right time. We wanted to be able to listen to our community and do what we needed to do to continue to help over the next 12 to 18 months as people start to get back to work, or maybe they don't have work, or how can the arts play a part? It wasn't the right time for celebration. So we are going to postpone it to September of 2021. And instead of starting to celebrate when we reach our 10 years, we're going to start to celebrate because we made it 10 years. That's our new.
Well, Josh, we really appreciate you joining us here on InReach. Congratulations to you all for becoming Orlando's Community Builder of the Year. And we are very much looking forward to being back in to the audiences and seeing you guys all perform again very soon. Thank you, Josh. We'll be back with more coming up in just a bit. A popular addition to the Lucas Nursery was opened in 2004. It featured what they call flying flowers, officially called the Butterfly Encounter.
The Butterfly Encounter is a 4,000 square foot conservatory. On a good day, we house anywhere from 300 to 500 live butterflies that are all native to the state of Florida. We also house birds in here. The birds that roam the ground are called Chinese button quail. They're actually our cleaning crew. They eat the insects and the dead butterflies. But we also have some interesting varieties of finches that will fly throughout the air. The Butterfly Encounter was conceptualized by two friends, an entomologist named Mike Rich and Philip Lucas. And they would go to Costa Rica and watch the butterflies and see the butterflies there, and they decided there's nothing like this in Central Florida. It started out with a 1,000 square foot little room and with a little shack on the outside, and within 2 years it grew to 4,000 square feet. It was nothing like we've ever had in Central Florida. The beauty about the Butterfly Encounter is that we have a room called the Butterfly Refueling Station, and in that room is our interactive room. Now, that species of butterfly in there is called the Painted Lady, and she literally is my most social butterfly. How you get her on your fingers, we encourage people to dip their finger in a little cup of juice, and you have to walk up to the butterfly and you nudge their feet. What most people don't realize is that butterflies actually taste with their feet. So once you nudge that butterfly with your finger with that juicy finger. They taste that sweet juice on your finger. They will unroll that proboscis, which is their fancy word for tongue, and they will sip the juice right off your finger. We also encourage that if you take that little butterfly, you can slide it right to the end of your nose and have a butterfly sit on your nose. And you see the joy of their children's faces when they have that butterfly crawling on their face. It makes it all worth it. It really does. I would hope that when people come here, they're getting back in touch with nature. The Butterfly Encounter is a great place for families and people to come and just unplug from the world. As soon as you walk in the doors, there's music playing, there's water playing, and it sets you in a whole nother mind frame. It allows people to just step out of their busy lives and just stop and appreciate the little things that nature has to offer, and just for families to reconnect and for children to follow a bug and watch a caterpillar and watch a bird. It's the greatest opportunity.
And joining us right now is Lindsay Taylor, who is the theater producer for the Orlando Fringe Festival. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, it certainly has been an interesting time here. Normally, the Fringe Festival is something that happens right about the time that literally everything shut down. So talk about that experience, Lindsay, of, you're almost ready. It's almost time to do the thing that you do in the spring, and then suddenly you can't do it.
Yeah, what a ride we've been on the past couple months. We canceled about 8 weeks before our festival was scheduled to begin. It just became a situation where every day was changing, and in order to keep our patrons safe and our artists safe, with the unknown so strong, we decided to cancel. And we were one of the first U.S. Fringes to do that. We're the beginning of our circuit, so we kind of led the drive to people really evaluating what they were doing with their festivals.
And of course, it's a heck of a challenge because for you all, you have a couple of different times in the year where you do, but the big festival really, right, is this one. So it's a heck of a challenge for you in terms of trying to put a festival on, but you sort of did, right? You used sort of this electronic way of doing. Wasn't the same, but it was interesting.
It was interesting, yeah. It wasn't ever meant to be the actual festival itself.
Right.
We were trying to just kind of emulate the different emotions and different feelings in relationship to our festival without actually having the festival itself, because it's impossible to exactly replicate it. But we had interviews with artists that have been at the festival a long time. We did show some of their performances, and we had classes through our visual Fringe and kids Fringe. It was cool, and I think it kind of gave everyone a taste of what we do, which is neat, especially for people who've never been to our festival before. Yeah,
I think that's if there's an advantage that came out of this, it's that, right? That people who maybe have heard of Fringe but haven't actually been able to go in past years, they can access that online, and now it's one of those things where maybe you're getting to people who ordinarily just can't get there.
Yeah, and I think there was a shift in the middle of planning this where we thought, well, wait a second, this is for our patrons. It's sort of a love letter to them, but also we can really reach people who may not ever be able to actually get here. So when that sort of shifted, it was cool to see the ideas and the formulations of planning and how that changed based off of what reach we could offer.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, sort of where you are now and how you are trying to adapt and plan for the future in these really difficult times to predict what's going to happen in the future. What do you see as being the path forward for Fringe right now?
Right now, I think we're kind of we did a post meeting based off of what we've done, trying to figure out what works for us, what works for our artists. And I think a digital element in everything we do leading forward is kind of what we're leaning towards, because again, it also expands the audience, even people locally who may not be able to get to the actual festival. So I think even when we get to the point of being in person again, I think a digital element's definitely going to still be there, which is cool and it's exciting.
Well, and certainly you all have shown, as I would expect from Orlando Fringe, you all have shown really great creativity in trying to find ways to stay connected with your fans and with your loyal patrons, despite the fact that you can't physically be together.
Definitely. There was never really a question of if we were going to do something or not for our digital Fringe. It was immediately like, what can we do to stay connected? Because our festival, this was the year 29. Like, we've been around for a long time, and we didn't want to just have a year go by with nothing planned. And it kind of blew up. We had like a couple things planned, and then all of a sudden it was like over 100 events, and we were like, okay, now we're in this.
Well, and you all, if folks haven't had a chance to see sort of the things that you were doing on social, it was really fascinating. It was varied. There were all sorts of different things that happened. There were interviews. It was just a really interesting way to deal with not being able to have it, but yet being in this position. How did that come together? As a producer, obviously, you would have been involved in a lot of those conversations. How do you figure that out, or was it literally just sort of on the fly?
Well, my initial intention was to just do behind-the-scenes type things, like workshops and classes and interviews. So that part kind of came together pretty quickly because that was what I had thought Fringe Today was going to be. And then when I had a lot of empty spaces, I thought, well, I'll just open it up to anyone who wants to submit their shows. So that's, in that sense, it sort of turned into Fringe, where some people were broadcasting their shows. But I wanted to give people a behind-the-scenes look, like how they would talk to an artist after a show at the beer tent and have that conversation about their show, like their process, their inspirations. And that's what Fringe Today was to me, is to get those one-on-one sort of interactions. And, we got a lot of great conversations that came out of a lot of different cool events.
Well, I know that's one of the things, as I watched some of the pieces that you all produced, one of the things I thought was really great is, it's my experience anyway, that people generally are always fascinated by process and that sort of behind the scenes look into any kind of production of any sort, whether it's an audio recording or theatrical recording or whatever it may be. So I thought it was really interesting how that you sort of took that turn talking a little bit about process and how things come together. What was the reaction like?
I think people really enjoyed it. I think sometimes you might be shy to talk to an artist if you see them, and it kind of like wiped away all that being on the internet. Like, you could type a question that you may not have asked them in person. And with 50% of our artists, typically at a normal festival, being from out of town, national, international artists make up 50% of our festival. You got that time with those people where normally you can't, it's difficult to access them because they're not here locally.
And certainly, as you look forward, I hope, Lindsay, at some point in the future, we're going to get back to something that looks quasi-normal to us. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts in terms of upcoming season of Fringe, and how are you kind of walking through the planning process now for what comes next?
We are fortunate now with the gift of time, because we have almost a whole year to think of different scenarios of what we'll do and how we'll adapt to what we're being guided to. When we canceled regular Fringe and then worked on Fringe Today, it all came together within about a month. So a lot of it was just, what was our gut saying about it? Like, where did our hearts lead us to decide on what we were wanting to do with this? But I think practically, we have a year to really think about what's the best for our patrons, what can we do, what are the different options, and I think that's just it. It's just kind of going day by day with what we're being told, and also being able to be flexible and have different plans.
Of course, one of the things that is to your advantage is the outdoor nature of a lot of the activities. That gives you a little bit of flexibility, even if we're still in somewhat of a lockdown mode in spring of 2021. At least you've got that, right? That's definitely an advantage for you guys.
Yeah, we have our lawn, which is our outdoor stage hub, and our food trucks and our hangout area. But also, like, we have about typically 7 to 8 shows that are site specific, is what we call them, and they're usually outside. So I think we might actually see a big increase in that this coming year as people start to brainstorm about creative ways to make their shows work where being in a theater space may not look the same.
Well, I have to tell you, Lindsay, just on a personal note, it was very disappointing for me this year because I've only been here in Central Florida for a couple years. And normally it seems like Fringe Festival and my travel schedule never allowed me to come to Fringe. This year, 2020, was the first year since I've been here where it worked out timing-wise, and then this all happened. So I'm not telling you that was your fault. I'm just saying, let's hope next year goes better.
Yeah. Clear your schedule. I know. I had a couple people message me and say that they purposely planned travel around Fringe this year, and I'm like, well, come join us next year.
Yeah, it's always a challenge. Just there's so much going on here in Central Florida all the time, and so it's difficult when you want to try to participate in as many of these arts events as possible. And especially something like Fringe, which, you kind of have to, it's a limited time frame. It's not something that you're going to every month.
Right. It's special. It's 2 weeks out of the year where you feel like you're at a theatrical summer camp. And we do, like you said earlier, we do events throughout the whole year, but
right.
Fringe it stands out.
Yeah. So as you think about what this means to the organization, I know it's probably too soon to tell, but, part of the challenge, of course, is a lot of the revenue that you all raise is from the festival, which you couldn't do the same way this year. How is that going to impact your ability to continue going forward?
Well, I think we're going to have to evaluate how our digital platform and ticket sales like this for Fringe today. We didn't charge anything. We just encourage donations to the artists because we are an organization where 100% of the profits go back to the artists. We wanted to keep that for Fringe today, but also we want to stay as an organization. So I think, going forward with digital events, there will be some sort of fee to pay and then to access shows after that, like our buttons, because we have button sales, right, which goes back to us. So I think it's going to be a virtual button.
So if people want to find out about next year's Fringe, where do they go? How do they get the information about that, Lindsay?
Yeah, we're all over social media. We have a Facebook page, and also orlandofringe.org is the best way to find us. Great.
Well, thank you for joining us this morning, Lindsay. We appreciate you being here. Lindsay Taylor, theatrical producer from the Orlando Fringe Festival. Thank you so much, Lindsay.
Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of In Reach. I'm Dr. Phil Hoffman. We'll see you next time.